Woohoo! I can see people clapping, and thank you so much, Matej. Please share your love in the chat for Matej and follow him on the social media handle that you can see. You wanted to say something, Matej?
I wanted to say thank you.
Thank you also so much. We had people writing in the chat that I just want to get up and hop around the room, really nice. So you really gave us a really nice energy, and that it sounds amazing for this foggy morning. So thank you. Don't forget to follow Matej on the social media handle and support the musician, and thank you.
Thank you.
And after dancing a little bit in the room, yes, technical, yes. Okay. So I am so grateful and that this creative person accepted to explore this global theme with us. I loved so much the description that she offered. Maybe you have read it already or not, but she defined herself as she does not flip pancakes in the morning, but flips roles from teacher, festival manager, volunteer to NGO president to party goer to trainer, and then back to being a mom. So I can imagine that she has been in a lot of situations of stress. So Anda Culișir, thank you so much for joining us, and the virtual microphone is to you.
Hi everyone. I hope that everybody can hear me fine. My internet connection might pose some problems because I'm in my countryside house. If I get interruptions, small interruptions, let's blame it on Zoom. I'm used to it in this situation where I have to teach in a hybrid scheme with half of the kids in front of me and half of the kids at home, and you have to talk to everyone at the same time. So compared to that, this is nothing. Yeah, I will explain how I'm going to talk, how I structured my my little talk this morning, because I was thinking a lot about it. As I said yesterday, I posted on Facebook, I changed my profile picture and I posted the fact that it's quite funny that I'm stressing out about me talking about stress. It was just a joke until 10 minutes ago when the kids at my school wrote me a very nice message. Thank you, Raluca. They're here with us and they're like, oh, Anna, we're sure you're gonna do just great and we're here for you. And I'm like, thanks, guys. Thanks for stressing me out just nicely. I was fine until now because my main concern are always the kids and my knees are always trembling behind my desk every time I meet new kids. I was fine because I was talking to people that I didn't know, but now the pressure is on. So hopefully I will do a good job and hopefully I can inspire you a bit. Steffi thought it was a good idea for me as a teacher maybe to talk about it. I hope I'm not going to be too didactical about it, and I hope you're going to be able to see behind or hear behind my weird English accent. I haven't been talking in English for a long time now. And thank you so much, Steffi, for inviting me. Initially, my plan was to talk to you guys and initiate a conversation. But then I realized it will not make any sense because, first of all, when I stress out, I talk a lot. Not because I need to connect with people, but maybe because I need to feel understood and loved and listened to as a human being. So because this is the first time I'm doing this, I decided that it's best for me to get out all the stress by just talking. And the second reason I didn't decide to initiate the conversation with you is that technology might be a bit of a bummer in this situation, because I really wanted initially to get the feedback from you guys or gather ideas from you guys, like talking about through a word or a phrase for you guys to get engaged and share things that stress you out, things that make you get unstressed and so on and so forth. But because the time is challenging, we only have like 20 minutes, I would not have the time, I would have not have had the time to discuss all the things that you are writing to me. And therefore, I didn't want to make you guys feel like I'm not taking your ideas into consideration and I'm not exploring your ideas and make you feel even more disengaged than engaged. So I decided that I will just talk and I will take questions at the end. Because I'm a biology teacher, of course, what I'm going to do about it, because I'm not an expert. So I'm not a psychologist, I'm a biology teacher. Therefore, what I can do about it when exploring this theme is to provide you guys with some biological evolutionary facts that relate to stress and that might inspire you, and also give you some of the ingredients of my recipe of distressing. And if you find yourself in those, would be a good idea. And if not, we're gonna talk about it when I finish, if that's okay with you guys. Yeah, thumbs up if it's a good plan. All right, thanks. So first of all, who am I? I am Anda. My name is Anda. I am a biology teacher, and besides that, I serve multiple roles, meaning that I'm a festival manager. I'm a teacher that was awarded the Merito Awards, which is a Romanian award for exceptional teachers in Romania. Not exceptional, but aspiring teachers in Romania, I think. And I'm a trainer and a facilitator for different NGOs when it comes to educational programs and training for other teachers and kids. I'm a mentor for teachers that live in rural areas because I'm a leader of a volunteer club for 10 years now in the high school where I teach. Now I'm a mentor in a program for teachers that want to develop similar activities for their school, meaning that they can develop community service learning projects with their kids in order to kind of help the community and also get the kids to learn more about how society actually works and to develop real life skills in those kids. I'm also the president of an NGO. It's called Blana, which means fur in English, fur as in animal fur. It's kind of funny. I started that NGO with kids from my volunteer club, which are not kids anymore now, they're students. Marius Marius is one of them. You might know him from previous talks. He talked about purpose a few weeks ago. Yeah, I do tons of stuff, and I'm a mother and a friend and a daughter and everything else. The first, if I have to describe myself in like, not one word, but one expression, why do I do all these things? What's common in all of these areas? I think I could describe myself as I found that the common thing in all of those is that I am a creator of learning contexts for other people. And that's where I explore my creativity. Everything I do it under that umbrella of creating contexts for learning for myself and for the people I work and engage and collaborate with. If something, and I realize that about myself, and I think it's a very good idea to realize that about oneself, because I realize that a lot of contexts that seem very provocative and cool and meaningful don't activate me at all. If I don't find that learning is produced through a program or a context or a project, something inside me shuts me off and I just don't do it. Or I do it, but with low quality. So this is the first thing that helps me kind of choose what I'm doing and what stress is worth my effort and what stress is not worth my effort. That's the first thing I do. This is like one thing of my recipe of success. And not stressing out in that manner, I mean. So that's the thing that I focus on. Another thing that I can share with you is the questions that people ask me, because it's such a complicated thing to explain to people that when someone asks me, so what do you do? I just tell them I'm a teacher. And they come up with 3 types of questions. The first question is, but why? With such pity in their eyes, like you had so much potential, you got lost somewhere. Can I help you? The second type of question is, so how are the kids today? They're shit, right? That's the second type of question. Like they would expect me to start debriefing myself and for them to help me out in some way of dealing with the kids today, which surely are horrible. And obviously that's not true. The kids today are just brilliant. They're completely different from the kids 3 years ago, but that's a good thing. We cannot be the same as the generations before, because that means that we would be still stuck in the Neanderthalian level. We would have not evolved as a society. So, and the third question they ask me is, how do you do it? How do you get stressed out? Which is the question that you might like, that you guys might ask me right now in your minds. So I would explore the theme of stress from a biological evolutionary point of view first. I cannot talk about stress without talking about emotions, because stress, and this is like the classical definition of it, is a complex response of a human being to a certain context. And it's a complex response that is linked specifically to an individual response, because the same situation causes two different responses in two different people. Like, for example, pandemic started, chaos started in the educational system, which was chaotic anyway. And especially now, where we found out what we have to do 3 days prior to actually going to school. That type of context made half of my colleagues to become desperate and blocked, and half of my colleagues, including me, to start getting creative like hell. And I love it. And I was talking to a good friend of mine 2 days ago about the situation, and she said a very good sentence that actually works for me. Said that chaos is the manure of creativity. In Romanian sounds even funnier, the house with balegarul creativității. But that's how it is, because it's one word of wisdom. And the second word of wisdom comes from our friend Littlefinger in Game of Thrones, which said that chaos is a ladder. And indeed it is. They both work just fine for me, because I get to be very creative in a new stressful environment. So I cannot talk about stress without realizing that it's a very complex answer of an individual to a situation, and more ingredients are causing that reaction. It's your temperament, a thing that you were born with, our unconditional responses to an environment, which is like the main, the first reaction to fear. It's either flight or fright mechanism. If you're born with a certain genome, which luckily I have, you react to new stressful environment, new stressors that are not familiar to you in a very active manner. You activate yourself, and you either run or you fight or you get angry or you do something about it, but you do something about it. The second type of people, unfortunately, they are the ones that react with fright, and that means complete paralysis in front of something new. That's a shit thing for me to say, and for someone to realize that they realize like that they work like that they respond like that. But the good news is they can change it, because the answer of someone to a stressful situation is not just based on your temperament, things that you're born with, but also on your personality that develops on top of temperament in the first years of life, and also through behavior, which is a learned way of reacting to other people. And if once you realize how you react instinctively, you can change that afterwards, and that's a good thing. Another thing I can say about stress from a biological evolutionary psychology point of view, and regarding to emotions, is if you think about the definition, the word, the Latin language of stress is distringo. And distringo means to stretch out. And that means, the stress means to stretch out who you are and to stretch out your resources in a direction or another. And that's the basic thing of talking about stress, is saying that in itself, it's a positive thing. It's related to emotions that trigger actions. It's related to anxiety, fear, but reactions that cause you to do something. It's your adaptive response to a stress factor. And that's a really good thing to realize every time you're stressed out. It's not related to other emotions that pose like despair, depression, sadness, loss. It's not related to that. It's related to action emotions, and that's a good thing. Psychologists, this is the third thing I would like to say. Psychologists, I was reading about it. They structure emotions into two categories. They put emotions into two categories, primary and secondary. The primary emotions, of course, there are different schools of psychologists, they keep talking about it, but they identify the primary emotions as your basic reactions to an external factor. Fear, anger, joy, surprise, disgust. Some say it's 7 of them. Otherwise, others say it's 5 of them. It doesn't even matter. The idea is that they're primary reactions. The secondary ones, those are the tricky ones. Those are reactions based on your initial reaction. I will give you an example. And these ones are taught. You learn them in a social, cultural environment, the one that you were raised in, and the one that you function in. I will give you an example. For example, in Romania, a little boy, because I work with kids, of course, I'm going to give a lot of examples in that area. A little boy, his father was born and raised during communism. You do not react to fear. If you fall over, you don't cry, you man up about it. You're not allowed to cry. You don't be a wuss. You're not a wuss about it. But the kid, when he falls over because it's a danger that he just encountered, his primary reaction is fear. Because he learned he's not supposed to deal with fear, his secondary emotion is anger. So he builds on top of the fear he initially developed. And then a friend comes to help him up. He behaves aggressively towards the friend, and then shame comes to override the anger and the fear that was born initially to the external factor, which was the fact that he fell over. So for a very small thing, falling over, the reaction gets a lot more amplified because he builds on top secondary emotions. So that's the theory in psychology, and it makes a lot of sense because, it makes a lot of sense. I kind of explain myself. The tricky thing about the secondary emotions, and they all get involved into a stress response from us to a different context, is the fact that they're harder to identify. They're harder to identify because they're reactions to your reactions. They're reactions not to external stimuli, but to internal stimuli, and you feel responsible for them. They amplify the response a lot more than normal, and they make you feel overwhelmed, and therefore they're harder to identify, they're harder to accept, a lot harder to accept, and a lot harder to resolve. So my way in dealing with it is reflect a lot. I reflect a lot about what was the thing that caused all this, and if my response is proportional to what caused it. If my response is proportional to what caused it, then I'm fine. I know how to deal with it. If my response is a lot more amplified than how it should be, then definitely I'm dealing with secondary emotions, and I know how to kind of identify them, get them out of my system, and then deal with what I'm supposed to deal in the first place. So I don't get things overworked up in my brain, and that helps a lot. Like, for example, and I also know who to turn to for emotional support. For example, I was talking yesterday to Marius, because I was coming home from the country house I live in to go and teach in the school that I teach in. The weather was shit, everything was, and I felt the sadness coming up. I didn't know why, I didn't know what caused it, but my main thing was to listen to depression songs, Lana Del Rey and stuff like that in the car. And I realized, well, this is not a very, very good thing because I'm about to interact with 12-year-olds. If I go like that, especially because I didn't know what caused the stress in the first place. And it took me about 5 or 10 minutes to think about it and to realize that it's not the weather, it's not that I'm stressed out in working with the kids, it's the fact that for the past 2 weeks, I was only concentrating on schoolwork, and I did not speak to some friends of mine, and I didn't put enough time into my family, for example. And I was like, okay, the sadness and stress is just coming up. If I'm listening to depressive songs now, it will not help. I think I need some happy songs. Who's the person to turn to? Marius. He has the best happy song playlist in the world. I knew who to call. I told him what my problem was. Man, I'm a bit, I felt like I could connect to you. You're my helper in this moment. Please provide me with 10 happy songs. Happened in 5 minutes, in 10 minutes, I was good to go when I go to school. Does it make sense? What I just said with my mechanisms and stuff. Okay, boom. Another biology fact. And why biology fact? Because psychologists, they complicate things a bit. They do a great job, but they complicate things a bit for me. So I understand the thing with the primary and secondary emotions, but they're a bit complicated because anger normally is a primary emotion, but it can be a secondary one if behind it is helplessness, for example. So how do I deal with it in that situation? And I was talking to a good friend of mine. He's teaching at the zoology department in the biology faculty of Cluj. And we were talking about it. And us putting our brains together, we came up with kind of an idea of how things work. And we were talking about reptiles and the reptilian brain. And yeah, it is like that. So this is what I'm going to tell you now is a biological evolutionary fact that is linked with creativity. So now I'm going to talk about creativity a bit. So first of all, our brain, the main part of the brain, has two sides to it. Internally, it has the emotional instinctual brain, the diencephalus, I think it's called in English, diencephalon in Romanian. It started appearing when the first vertebrates appeared with fish. And it deals with regulating metabolism, temperature, instincts of finding a mate, finding food, finding water, and defense mechanisms. And that's all it does. And in other vertebrates, new layers of neurons deposited on top, forming the cortex, the rational, the cognitive part of the brain, which in humans is huge. And because it's so big, it kind of got detached. The cortex is up here and the diencephalus is down there. And in our human brains, the smallest number of connections we actually have is between those two, the rational part and the emotional part. So we might know a thing, but feel a completely different thing at the same time. And that's a good thing to know. When in tons of situations when dealing with other human beings. But in that internal brain, from the reptilians onwards, and also in us, besides instincts and regulation of metabolisms and stuff, appeared a new thing on an evolutionary scale. And those are the emotions. 3 or 4 groups of neurons formed, like 3-4 main centers that deal with emotions. They started in reptiles because reptiles are the first ones that have the behavior of caring for their young. So therefore they had to kind of develop those. And there are 3 main centers: the panic center, the attachment center, the secure attachment center, and the enthusiasm and curiosity center. And we in humans have them the same as in reptiles and birds and other mammals, and it's the same, they have not changed. We tend to think of ourselves as a very evolved mechanism. We're not in this area, meaning that our ancestors only had like few hundred thousands of years until now. The stressor factors around us changed, but the way our brain reacts and the substances it produces, like serotonin, oxytocin, and so on and so forth, are exactly the same. Our responses to stress are exactly the same. So we still have those 3 nuclei in the brain. And how is it good to know about them is because it makes a lot easier explanation for us and for creatives to kind of understand why do they do certain things when they do them, instead of looking at the psychological aspect and point of view. And the easiest thing to do is to analyze a small child, a baby, because that baby did not learn any other emotions and did not learn any other nuances of emotions. They only know the basic ones: panic, attachment, and enthusiasm. So me and my colleague, we were talking about it. I was like, so how do we catalog these? Because they're not primary, they're not secondary. Let's call them basal, like basal emotions. And from them, maybe the primary ones evolve. Like from panic, you end up with fear, anxiety, so on and so forth, the things that psychologists talk about. But let's talk about the 3 main ones. So these 3 main ones develop one by one as the kid interacts with the world around it. The first one that gets activated since the child is born is the panic button, the panic center of the brain. Because that's the thing the kid needs in order to survive. The main response to stress is through panic. When the mother leaves the room and the child is left alone without the secure source of food, attachment, or whatever, the only thing the kid knows is not fear or anxiety, is pure panic. It starts crying uncontrollably in the hope that someone will hear that loud noise and will do something about it for the child to survive. When the mother enters the room and starts creating a secure connection with the kid, and the kid starts recognizing smells, voices, whatever, something familiar, the second center starts to activate, which is the attachment one. And the cool thing about it is the more the attachment center is activated, the less the panic center is activated. The more active one is, the less active the other one is. And this thing develops over the next months of time in that baby's life, meaning that the kid is expanding his secure attachment horizon. Not just the mother, but the father comes in, the grandma, the house he lives in, the school he goes to, and he keeps expanding. You know that theory with the safety zone and then the exploring zone and then the panic zone. It's kind of similar, but explaining it through biological facts. Okay, so the kid starts activating the secure connection thing. And when that center gets activated, that's when the third center comes in, which is the center of enthusiasm. And the center of enthusiasm means exploring and means creativity. When someone feels safe and secure and has a safety net around it, made by people he loves, places he feels safe in, safe spots, safe pets, I don't know, a cat, a coffee, a good book. You know exactly who to turn to and talk to about it, and not just build up things in your brain through secondary emotions, then you get creative. If you don't do that, you do not activate your creativity center in a positive manner. Does it make sense? So in order to be creative, you need to feel safe. That's the main thing. That's the connection. Now, I have to talk about a third thing that is related to creativity. And it's the same type, like example, like with the baby. The creativity center can get activating by bypassing the attachment one from fear straight to creativity. That does happen. And I will tell you an example when does that happen. Also by analyzing our ancestors and our primordial brain. And I'll link it to creativity in a minute when I finish. And this is a story about empathy. Human beings are profoundly empathic. We feel empathy for other people. And it's said about creatives, about creative people, that they feel more empathy than other people, because otherwise you don't live through your senses, you don't interpret the world, but creative people understand things in a different manner. They feel tastes, noises, they feel beauty, they find beauty in a leaf, in nature, in a cup of coffee, in a cat, in creating a kaleidoscope, and so on and so forth. They do find beauty. So it's said that creative people have high levels of empathy. Well, that's, in my opinion, that's my personal theory, it's not completely true. And that's connected to the environment we are raised in. And I will give you the example with our ancestors. The hormone that triggers empathy in human beings is known to be oxytocin. And it was believed up till a few years back that a person with high levels of oxytocin feels empathy and it's a very good communicator and everything. A person with low levels of oxytocin was categorized as an egotistic person. Now it's known that not the levels of oxytocin do the trick, but the number of receptors for oxytocin in the brain. And those receptors are formed in the first 3 years of life of a human being, and that's it. And it's an evolutionary adaptation to do that. People that are raised, and also it's thought that people that are raised in a stressful environment without secure attachment and stuff will develop less receptors, and therefore they will have low tolerance to frustration, to stress, and they will act in an egoistic way. And people that were raised in a secure environment will have more receptors and will be more empathic. I'll give you now the ancestor explanation. Let's say we have a tribe of 60 people, a tribe. They live in a cave, they're divided by roles, and so on and so forth. The males go and get food, they hunt or whatever, and the women stay with the children, they provide them the secure connection, whatever, they make a fire, they find some roots and herbs, but they're there all the time. It makes sense, the kids will cooperate, the kids will have high levels of empathy. How does it help to be egoistic then? Well, it has a lot to do with the access to resources at a certain time and space. Let's say that the resources have gone down in the past years for that particular tribe. That means that the male will go out hunting and be gone, not for a day, but for 3 or 4 days in a row. That means that the females will have to provide food in that amount of time. They will not be able to stay with the children as much as they would when resources were all over the place. That means they will have to go and find roots and tubers and plants for 2 days, for 1 day, and the kids will be left alone, and they will cry, and they will have the panic button activated all the time. And that will mean that they will have a very small number of receptors for empathy and for oxytocin, and they will be egoistic. How does that help them? It helps them survive. When you do not have enough resources, only few of them will live by being egoistic and eating everything and not sharing anything with the rest of the tribe. It's horrible for the people in the tribe at that time and space, but it will make the species survive. Only 10% will survive, but the species will move forward. It's an adaptation thing, not just in mammals, but also in birds. Like, for example, in birds of prey, they have this mechanism is called Cain and Abel from the Bible, where Aquila has like 3 eggs. If it's a good year, she starts sitting on the eggs as soon as she lays them. So a baby will be older than another one, and those will be older than another one. One will be bigger, one intermediate, and one will be smaller. If the resources are enough, they all survive. If the resources are not enough, the older ones will kill the younger ones, and the mother will kill the younger ones for the older ones to have all the resources. And those are very egoistic behaviors, but they do make sense. And that's when I talk about creativity. So the creativity center in the brain of those kids will activate, but bypassing the attachment one. From fear and panic, creativity will start in order to find solutions to get the food for yourself and not for the rest. So a lot of creative people, even in the past, come up with this type of creativity. I call it a negative creativity for them. It's good for us, but it's bad for them. Like, for example, all the painters that you knew that had a very interesting life in the neighborhood of Montmartre of Paris, and they were poor, but they were creating and expressing all their internal trauma through art and creativity. For us, it was great. They came up with an enormous art, pieces of art, enormous quantity of art, but for them, it was quite destructive. So I think for any person that tries to create something in any context, it's good to think about those things as well. How am I creating? Am I creating through human connection, or am I creating through express my internal trauma? Because either one you do is good for your process, but it might not help you for surviving, in meaning that it will stress you out more than it has to. Right, I had to share with you guys biological facts. As I said, I'm a biology teacher. I will stop now with a good idea in the end, and then I'll talk about my recipes. A good thing to take in consideration is that a lot of things that we do, bypassing all the primary and secondary emotion, is that most of the things are a combination between these 3 centers. You do feel fear, but you love a friend, you want to help a friend, you combine the 2, you end up being really brave, and courage gets born, which is the best thing you can do in order to be creative. Or you feel fear, but you feel enthusiasm at the same time. Creativity and curiosity sparks up. So I think, in my personal opinion, that if we combine these 3 and we know to identify exactly in a context which spark up, we would know better how to combine them in order to get past that stressful situation. For me, how do I deal with stuff? I think about all of this. So my first thing I do, I establish secure connections with people. I have a huge network of people, and I have basically multiple safety nets. I know who to turn to when I need to turn to in a certain moment of my life. The second thing I do, I reflect a lot. I reflect a lot about how things affect me in one way or another. The third thing I do, and I realized is good for me, I don't want to activate my long-term stress mechanism in the producing of cortisol. I want to activate my short-term adrenaline type of stress, because stress consumes a lot of resources, and I don't want to consume resources on a long period of time. I'd rather consume a lot of resources in a short period of time. So I always put end goals and objectives in a short span of time. I do not end up with a long time goal, as in 4 years, and I stress out 4 years. Those are like my vision. But my goals are maybe 3 months tops, not more than that. Another thing I do also to activate the adrenaline mechanism, which pumps me up, I'm very happy about it, but does not take all the resources from my brain, the oxytocin, everything else. I multitask a lot. I multitask on periods of time of about 30 minutes. And during one day, I jump from one to the next, from a context to the next, because I draw inspiration from different contexts. Like when school is too much, I interact with the kids through the volunteer club, because they're new, they're fresh, they have tons of ideas. And when I see how easily they take up on life, it makes me feel a lot more chilled compared to when I interact with the adults in the system and they're like, nothing can be done. This is horrible. The system is horrible. I'm not going to do anything anymore. I cannot live like that an entire school year, because I would completely die. I would kill myself. So when that is too much, I interact with the kids. When kids are too much, because my head is like that, I go to my family, and that's it. I completely ghost out. I come to my country house and I garden and I feed the hedgehog that lives in my barn, and I do random stuff. I go out and pick up mushrooms and I interact with random people from the community. So I kind of know exactly when to switch on and off multitasking. What else I can tell you is that, and this is, I think, the last thing, I have a lot more things I could tell you, but the one thing I do is when I multitask, and I do multitask, I do not include the family and my closest people, my closest safety net in that multitasking. Because if I would do, I would have 20 minutes, 20 minutes, 20 minutes for something else, and then 2 hours to spend quality time with the family. Quality time does not happen on its own, because I come with my brain full of stuff from before, and I need a buffer time of at least 2 hours to watch stupid vampire teenager series on Netflix before I can even speak to my husband or play with my kid, before I can even say hello to my kid. So I definitely do not include the family and the people I really care about in the multitasking, because it doesn't help. Quality time comes only from quantity time. You have to spend quantity time. Even if the first hours are horrible, just being in the presence of that person and hanging out without talking to that favorite person that I have, or those favorite people that I have. And then quality kind of comes up in moments when I don't expect it. So that's the thing I don't kind of compromise on. And one thing that is my compass in this thing is that every time adrenaline and multitasking turn into tiredness and frustration, and especially when all these one context, I feel that I haven't learned anything from it in the end. After those 30 minutes, I don't feel inspired, I just feel tired, turns into blaming others, and especially feeling superior to other people. Like, for example, I was interacting with colleagues, and after a year, I start feeling superior and feeling like, oh, I cannot learn anything from these guys. Oh, my colleague, my Romanian colleague, oh, she teaches in a horrible manner. That's my main compass when I know that that context is not good for me anymore, because the safety net has disappeared, and therefore I will not be able to be creative in that environment. So I live my life in seasons. They overlap. Now I'm a festival manager for 10 years. Maybe next year I will become something else. I will fill up that void. But first, I need that safety net. And if that doesn't help, if I don't have that, then creativity in that area, I will not have it. So I just switch it. I just go stout and I just switch it. That's what I do. I don't know. I'm very, it's called metacognition. That's what I'm trying to do. Always be above myself and understand why I react and learn myself. If I learn, then I'm creative. If not, then I'm not. If you have questions, oh, no, before question, I wanted to also show you a cool book that might help you guys, because if I understand the biological things behind it, even in the most depressive situation of my life, if I understand what's going on in my head, I just think, breathe, survive, eat, sleep, breathe, survive, eat, sleep, and it shall pass. And then it does. And in order to understand, this book is very helpful. It's called Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcer. And it's called by Robert Sapolsky. It's written by Robert Sapolsky. It's very cool. He's a neuroscientist, but it's written for everyone to understand, and it explains the mechanisms of biological stress different than what I've told you now. But it explains a lot how stress turns into burnout, when it's okay to stop and reaccumulate resources before going out, before starting a new task and stuff like that. It will help a lot if you want to read it, and it's quite fun. And also, to end up on a positive note, if I give you my sugar, spice, and everything nice recipe for ingredients for my recipe of anti-stress, if Steffi would be so kind to help me out, and let's interact a bit finally after I talk. I'm not stressed anymore now, so thank you guys for helping me in that direction. I spoke like hell. We would open up this active poll in Slido, and if you just want, through an expression or a word, to write what's your main ingredient for anti-stressing, and try to be reflective about it. Don't just write, if you can, I don't know, writing or reading or writing, or a cat or coffee, or, because I have those as well, but they don't help all the time. So try to be a bit more deeper in it, if you can, if I inspired you a bit.
And for people not knowing this website, you have to go to the website, slido.com, and use the code creative. And you can add your answers, and in the end, we will create a word cloud, and we shall see what sugar, spice, and everything nice we have. While doing this, actually after doing this and before going into the Q&A section, I would like to take a group photo. So we will have for this exercise like 3 more minutes, and then if you can take your favorite mug, we will take a short screenshot group photo.
I will stay like this. Look how beautiful the background looks on my teeth. Everybody will have a cool reminder.
It's the chocolate.
Yeah, it's not the rainbow behind me.
I always love this moment when the cloud is forming.
Yeah.
Two more minutes.
Some people are taking multiple bubble baths. Some people are taking just a long one. Cool. Can I say something until people write stuff down?
Yes, I just wanted to remind the people on Facebook that they can also write their recipe in the comments section.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Please, Anda.
A special thank you to Juana and Alicia, because they were in my chat room this morning, and they helped a lot actually, because we had to interact a bit, and because I had to deal with so many people and the kids. I love you kids. but I was stressing out because they were here. It was so good to interact with just a small number of people and just share about, they were talking about poetry, and Alicia's from Singapore, and it was really cool. So it distressed me a lot, actually. So thanks. It was good. But they gave me energy and inspiration.
I'm really happy to hear that.
Talking about finding a good supportive network when you need one. Because I was thinking, should I go into a chat or should I read on my papers what I've written? And I was like, no, chat it is, man. Chat it is. And Alicia and Juana were there for me.
I'm happy you
Thank
took
you.
that option. Okay. Let's do the small. Oh, okay. I see that we have one. I sleep on it. Apparently,
Yeah.
more people relate to that ingredient.
Eat, sleep, breathe, and that's it. And the brain kind of manages to put them in order. I can relate to all of these, actually.
Me
Thank
too.
goodness. Yeah.
Especially the bubble bath.
I am with dancing and party going. Yeah, that does it for me. Definitely. And also ghosting out. Ghosting out is the best thing. Bye, guys. Love you guys. See you in a month. Bye. That's it. Yeah, it's lovely.
Okay. You can still, if you didn't decide on the ingredients, you can still write on, and at the end we will share on the Facebook page maybe this screenshot. But talking about screenshots, if you have your favorite mug with you, and I would encourage you to turn on for a little bit your web camera and have a group photo. I have my mug also.
You cannot see my mug, but it's here.
It's a rainbow. Okay, in 3, 2, 1. Good morning. Yay, thank you so much. And thank you so much once again, Anda. And now we will go in the Q&A section. If
Can I say something?
Yes, please.
In Juana asked me if we can be in contact from now onwards just to talk about stuff, and definitely not just for her but for everyone. You can find me on Facebook, Anda Culișir. I'll write it in the Anda Culișir. And yeah, please do write to me, and if I don't respond, I don't know. I will respond. Write to me. If I don't respond in the chat, maybe I didn't see that you wanted to befriend me, just write on my wall. That would make me feel, oh my God. And then I will get back to you. Definitely. Yeah, I love meeting new people and just talking about stuff. Definitely. So you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, wherever, but on Facebook is my domain.
If you have questions, everybody is on mute now. If you have a question you want to address Anda, please use the option of raise your hand. If you go to the participants, you will find this option, or you can write it in the chat or in the comment section on the Facebook Live, which is on our community partners page, Cluj Hub. Until now, we already have a question in the chat. From Corina, who says, yeah, ghosting out is ideal, but what happens when it is not possible, when it is not an option?
Yeah, I mini ghost out. If ghosting out completely is not an option, but I do that. I will give you an example of ghosting out. When I choose a holiday, I first don't choose the holiday for 7 days. If you do 7 days, then the pressure that you have on you to kind of make every day count. Go to the beach, Go to a Greek restaurant, do that, stay with the family. It's just not de-stressing out. And then you have like 5 minutes to read on the beach before the kid comes with a bucket full of sand and throws it up in your head. So it doesn't work like that. When I say ghosting out on holidays, I choose a holiday where I know for sure that people will not expect me to answer their messages. If people expect me to answer their messages and answer the phone, then the environment I work in, it's not one that works for me, and I will have to switch it. So all the environments I work with, and all the people I work with, they kind of know that just has to happen. That's how I choose them in the first place. So I make it to be an option without discussion. Because if I debalance myself, then I will not be productive in any aspect of my life. So even if you don't ghost out for a month, like my ideal ghosting out, first of all, I chose a job that allows me to ghost out. I'm a teacher, so at least a month per summer, I'm out. I'm out of everybody's hair. And I chose my job in relation to who I am. That's how I function. I know how I function. This is the type of job I need. I chose my family according to that. Because I'm a teacher and I build relationships around me, yeah, that's good, but I don't bring enough money. But my husband, it works in IT. Sorry, but that's how I operated. That's how we decided to work. If I'm not true to myself, then so it has to be an option. I know that it seems like it's not an option, but it is. Either ghosting out in a place where people know that for a week you're just not answering, and then you can just blame the signal. I retreat to the countryside and just go, sorry, the network went down. I would love to answer you guys, but I cannot. That's it. Or even if it's just for a week, or I do my life and do stuff in other months, and then I'm out of it for the next year. I go to work with the teachers in the Merito group for 3 weeks, and then for 2 months I'm off it, and then I'm on it again. So the jobs that I chose are not continuous, are not in a continuous block. I don't know how to put it in another way. Yeah. I promise I will answer shorter to the next question.
No worries. If we have another question, again, you can use the option of raise your hand. If you can't see the option, you can also use the reactions button. And I will check and unmute you. You have given a lot of food for thought.
I'm happy to do it. Yeah, I need to state out that my recipe does not function for everyone, but if a person knows exactly how they function, they find recipes for themselves. For me, not being able to ghost out is not an option. That's it. That's how I chose what I'm doing. For example.
So again, if you have a question, you can also write on Facebook, on the live from Culișir page in a comment, and I will address it to Anda. You can write it in the chat section of Zoom, or use the option raise your hand or reactions, and I will unmute you.
Is it normal for people not to ask questions?
When the subject is so powerful, and as I mentioned, when you give a lot of food for thought, I think it's a little bit challenging, to find the right question, or maybe they're just very shy this morning.
No, it doesn't. I'm fine with it, as long as I was able to help, or I don't know, help people find inspiration. I would have loved to be able to talk more about examples, like personal examples, but I cannot say that my examples would relate to everyone, but those mechanisms, they do relate to everyone. And even if something seems impossible to do at one point, it actually is. It's just like you're not admitting to yourself at that point. But I do get surprised. I'm still working on stuff. Like, for example, I'm working on fear of missing out. Oh, this is amazing. Oh, because this way of me doing multitasking makes me to be a social animal. Like I'm a social animal, social beast. And that does take it out of me. And I wasn't even aware that I was building up so much byproduct stress factors in the background until the pandemic started. The pandemic for me was the best context ever where I could ghost out from everyone. And I never knew, I got surprised by the fact that we came to the countryside house. Well, before we would stay here for like a day of barbecue and that was it, but now we just moved here from February onwards. But luckily I react well to new things and I had to choose staying home in an apartment with 2-3 rooms and no balcony and having to silence a kid while my husband works online every day. I think we would have divorced 3 times a day. We love each other, but I was like, or we can go there and I can have my space in the garden and whatever. So that was, we didn't have running water. We didn't have a washing machine. And I was like, oh, let's go Amish for a bit. That would be interesting to hand wash stuff. And I found it like, it's a Boy Scouts camp. That's how I kind of projected my thought. Of course, we bought a washing machine the next week and stuff, but I projected like the fun part of it. And then creativity just started. I started gardening. I never did that in my life. I had a cactus in my house for my entire life and plastic plants from IKEA. I never thought I would do this, but creativity manifested as soon as I felt safe in the pandemic and as soon as I stopped my prefrontal cortex of finding solutions. They just came up and it was perfect and still is. Yeah, sorry.
If we, as I was talking with you before, you should share with the people a before and after picture of your gardening.
Oh yeah, definitely. It was nothing and I was just like very lush. But I don't have pictures on my laptop, only on my phone.
If we don't have any other question, we want to thank you once again, and I'm very grateful for accepting to be with us and sharing this food for thought this morning. And a special thank you also to Matej, who made us dance a little bit and enjoy the music. Don't forget to follow him on Facebook, Spotify, YouTube. And thank you once again for joining in, everybody, the lovely creative community from Cluj and not only. I'm looking forward to see you again to our next virtual edition. I'm wishing you a beautiful weekend.
After this is over, do you have 5 minutes? I need feedback. I
of course.
From something, otherwise I don't. The entire day would be like, did I do well? Did I disappoint? I'll call you and you just tell me, oh, look. Yeah, that's it. No, sorry, I was looking for pictures, but I can't find any.
We will stay a little bit more on Zoom, but thank you to everybody for joining in, and let's dance our way out. Thank you.